You know what's worse than being doubted? Being doubted because of who your father was. Imagine standing in the pouring rain, 30 soldiers watching your every move, waiting for you to crack, and then your staff sergeant Sohan, who is supposed to have your back, says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Your father earned that uniform. You're just wearing it." That's exactly what happened to Lieutenant Jade Mercer, and what her staff sergeant didn't know. He'd just made the biggest mistake of his military career. Now, before we get into how this all played out, let me paint you the picture properly. Fort Campbell, Kentucky. March, rain hammering down. The kind of miserable morning where everything's gray and muddy and smells like diesel fuel and trouble. It's 6:30 in the morning. An Alpha company is prepping vehicles for a massive 2-week training rotation. This isn't some casual exercise. This is the kind of evaluation that can make or break careers. Standing there in the rain is First Lieutenant Jade Mercer, 28 years old, 5'7", built like a distance runner. She's got that quiet intensity about her, you know, dark brown eyes that don't miss a thing, sharp features, black hair pulled back in a regulation bun. There's a thin white scar running from her right eyebrow into her hairline, barely visible, unless you're really looking for it. And trust me, that scar has a story. She's wearing standard army kit, but it's what's on that uniform that matters. First lieutenant bars on her chest, infantry crossed rifles, a ranger tab on her left shoulder, and if you know anything about the military, you know that tab means she went through absolute hell to earn it. On her right shoulder, there's an 82nd Airborne Combat Patch, proof she's deployed to actual combat zones. What's missing, though, is her Combat Infantryman badge, even though she earned it in Afghanistan. The paperwork's still stuck somewhere in the system. Classic military bureaucracy. She's running radio checks, making sure everything's squared away, whilst her platoon 36 infantry soldiers, most of them under 20, to see if their female platoon leader can actually lead, or if she's just another academy graduate playing at being a soldier. Standing nearby is First Sergeant David Kowalski, 43 years old, Faceley granite, 2 Iraq tours and 1 Afghanistan deployment under his belt. He's been watching Mercer for 2 weeks since she took command, reserving judgment, waiting to see if she's the real deal. But the real problem? That's Staff Sergeant Kyle Brennan, 10 years in the Army, squad leader. Former high school football star from Texas who'd blown out his knee and watched all his college scholarship offers disappear. He's standing 30 feet away with his squad, and he says it deliberately loud. New lieutenant's got big boots to fill. Let's see if she can walk in them without tripping. Specialist Maria Cortez, one of Mercer's vehicle drivers, glances at her platoon leader to see how she react. And here's what Jade does. ... Absolutely nothing. She doesn't even look up from her radio. Just keys the handset and continues her net check like she didn't hear a thing. First, Sergeant Kowalski heard it though, and he's already moving toward Brennan with murder in his eyes. But to understand why this moment matters so much, we need to go back, way back, 20 years back, to be precise. Jade Mercer was 9 years old when 2 officers in dress blues knocked on the door of their base housing at Fort Bragg. Her mom answered, saw their faces, and collapsed before they'd even spoken a word. Colonel James Mercer, Battalion Commander Ranger, decorated combat veteran, had been killed by an IED outside Fallujah. He'd been leading a mounted patrol that got ambushed, and he'd dismounted under fire to help wounded soldiers. The improvised explosive device detonated when he reached them. 14 soldiers survived because of him. He didn't. They gave him the Medal of Honor, posthumously. They gave Jade a folded flag and a shadow she'd carry for the next 2 decades. Her mom remarried when Jade was 12, a decent bloke, a defense contractor, someone who genuinely tried to be a father but could never fill that space. And Jade? She grew up driven by something she couldn't quite name. She excelled at everything. Academics, athletics, leadership. Not because she enjoyed it particularly, but because she needed to prove something to a ghost. West Point? At 17, graduated top 15% of her class. Commissioned as an infantry officer in 2018, one of the first women in the branch. Assigned to the 82nd Airborne as a platoon leader at 22. But here's the thing. Everyone who learned her name made the connection immediately. Mercer. Like Colonel James Mercer. And then came the assumptions. She only got here because of her name. They're going easy on her because of who her father was. special treatment, politics, all of it. So at 23, she volunteered for Ranger School during only the second year women were authorized to attend. Out of 19 women who started her class, 3 graduated. Jade was one of them. She earned that tab through 62 days of sleep deprivation, starvation, and psychological warfare that broke candidates who were physically stronger than her. She patrolled through Georgia's swamps with hypothermia setting in. She led missions on 3 hours of sleep over 5 days. She got recycled once during mountain phase when she failed a patrol due to a navigation error, then came back and absolutely crushed it. She wore that Ranger tab every single day. Some soldiers respected it. Others whispered she'd gotten special treatment even for that. Then came Afghanistan in 2022. Her platoon had been attached to a special forces team for village clearing operations in Paksha province. The mission went sideways in the first 30 seconds. Complex ambush from 3 sides. Radio operator dead. Forward element pinned down with 2 casualties bleeding out. And Jade. She took command. Organized defensive fire. Colding close air support danger close at. Military speak for so close it might kill us too. Then led a counter-assault that broke the ambush. 11 American soldiers survived that day because she kept her head whilst everyone else was losing theirs. They put her in for a Silver Star, one of the military's highest decorations for valor. It got downgraded to a Bronze Star with valor after a lengthy awards review process. Not necessarily because of gender bias, but because the reviewing officer felt the actions didn't meet the gallantry threshold. Whatever that means. She accepted it, locked it in a drawer, and never mentioned it again. Because medals don't erase doubt. Respect does, and she was still earning it. One skeptical soldier at a time, which brings us back to Fort Campbell. New platoon. New challenges. An NCO who openly disrespects her. And 2 weeks at JRTC, the Joint Readiness Training Center, to prove herself before the entire brigade watches her succeed or fail. She thought about her father every single day, wondered what he'd do, wondered if he'd be proud, wondered if she'd ever be good enough. Staff Sergeant Brennan had been a quarterback in secondary school, full-ride scholarship offers, the works, until he blew his knee junior year. The Army had been Plan B. 10 years later, he was still bitter, still trying to prove he was better than his circumstances. He'd expected a male platoon leader, someone he could relate to, have a beer with, swap stories with. Instead, he got Mercer, an academy graduate with a famous name who probably skated through on connections and politics. Whilst he earned everything the hard way, that formation incident was just the beginning. Tuesday, 5:30 in the morning. Platoon physical training. Mercer led them through a 6-mile run, followed by upper body work. She kept pace with the fastest soldiers and finished every exercise without slowing. Brennan made sure to comment afterwards, where she could hear, "Not bad for a lieutenant. Probably had someone carry her rucksack at West Point." Though, Wednesday, range day. Mercer shot expert with her M439 out of 40 targets, then qualified expert on the M249 and M240 machine guns. Brennan shot expert too, then loudly suggested the lane NCO must have been going easy on her. Thursday, vehicle maintenance. Mercer knew every system on the Humvee engine. Transmission, electrical, weapons, mounts. Could diagnose problems faster than most mechanics. Brennan told his soldiers she'd probably memorize the manual overnight to impress people. First Sergeant Kowalski pulled Brennan aside Thursday afternoon and explained very clearly that continued disrespect toward an officer would result in Article 15 punishment. That's non-judicial punishment, essentially. Brennan agreed, then went right back to undermining her. Quieter, more careful. Technically legal, but absolutely corrosive. By Friday, the platoon had split in half. Half respected Mercer's competence. Half watched Brennan to see if disrespecting her had actual consequences. Friday evening, the company commander Captain Robert Ash, 12 years in, former enlisted soldier, Ranger tab 0 tolerance for politics, called Mercer to his office. "I'm hearing things about Brennan," he said. "About morale. It's being handled, sir. Is it? Because it looks like your squad leader is running a shadow command." Mercer kept her face neutral. He's testing boundaries. I'm managing it. You've got 4 days until we roll to JRTC. If Brennan doesn't fall in line by then, your platoon won't function under evaluation pressure. That gets people hurt. Notionally hurt, but still hurt. Your career gets hurt for real. Understood? Understood, sir. So, handle it. However, you need to. Mercer walked out, knowing exactly what that meant. JRTC wasn't just training, it was a 2-week evaluation where every mistake got recorded and every leader got rated. If her platoon failed because of Brennan, her career failed with it. That night, alone in her quarters, she made a decision. She'd tried patience. She'd tried leading by example. Now she'd do what her father would have done, prove herself through performance that left absolutely zero room for doubt. Jade sat on the floor of her quarters that night, lights off, door locked. The room was Spar's bed, desk, wall locker. Nothing personal except one framed photograph on the nightstand. Her father in dress uniform, taken 2 months before Fallujah. He was smiling. She had his eyes. Her body ached from a week of trying to outwork skepticism. Her right knee throbbed from an old airborne injury. Her shoulders burned from carrying gear she didn't need to carry but carried anyway. Because sharing the load meant trusting soldiers who didn't trust her yet. Physical pain was nothing. The mental weight was crushing. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a photo she kept buried in her gallery, her father's Medal of Honor citation. She'd memorized it years ago, but still read it sometimes when doubt crept in. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, ... He'd led from the front, died leading from the front. She'd spent 20 years trying not to beat him, trying to build her own identity, make her own name, prove her own worth. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe instead of running from his shadow, she needed to step into it. Not to be him, but to honor what he'd built. Her phone buzzed. Text from First Sergeant Kowalski. Brennan's squad is losing faith in the chain. Need to address before JRTC. She stared at the message, then typed back, I will. Saturday morning, 8:15. Mercer's phone rang. Captain Ashford. Listen up. Battalion's running a pre-JRTC shakedown exercise starting Monday at every platoon in the company. 12-mile land navigation course with tactical problems at checkpoints, culminating in a platoon live-fire exercise. Your platoon goes first. That's 48 hours notice, sir. Correct. Which means you've got today and tomorrow to prep your soldiers, check equipment, and make sure everyone's ready. This isn't optional. Performance grades go into your officer evaluation report. Understood, sir. And Lieutenant, this is your chance to sort whatever's happening with Brennan. Don't waste it. He hung up. Mercer immediately called her squad leaders, including Brennan, and told them to have all soldiers and equipment staged for inspection and briefing by 1 o'clock. She spent the next 4 hours personally checking every radio, every weapon, every piece of kit. At 1300, 2nd Platoon formed up, 36 soldiers, all carrying game faces. Mercer briefed the mission. 12-mile course through Fort Campbell training areas. 4 checkpoints with tactical scenarios: casualty evacuation, equipment, recovery, hasty ambush, defensive position. Final event, platoon live fire. Assault on a shoot house. Time standard: complete everything in under 5 hours. She looked directly at Brennan. Staff Sergeant, you've got point navigation. I'll be moving with the main body, evaluating performance. Brennan nodded. No smile, just professional acknowledgement. Monday morning, 0600, they stepped off. Brennan set a hard pace. Not brutal, but challenging. Mercer stayed mid-formation, rotating between squads, checking soldiers, making corrections. B-mile, 3, 2, privates were struggling. She had stronger soldiers redistribute their ammunition to lighten their rucksacks. Basic leadership, done right. Mile 4. Casualty evacuation under simulated fire. Brennan ran it, made mistakes. Security positions wrong. Casualty movement inefficient. Mercer let him finish, then called the platoon in for a quick after-action review. pointing out what went wrong and how to fix it. No ego, just teaching. Brennan tried to organize it, got soldiers confused. Mile 12. Final checkpoint. Platoon live fire. Shoot house. 20 targets. Mixed threat and non-threat. First squad went. First 2 minutes, 20 seconds. 1 miss. Second squad 2 minutes. Flat. Clean. Third squad, Brennan's squat 1 minute 55. Clean. Fourth squad, Mercer's squad, went last. She led from the front. They completed it in 1 minute. 42 seconds. 0 misses. Perfect target discrimination. When they finished, every single soldier in the platoon was watching. Brennan stood there, processing what he'd just seen. First, Sergeant Kowalski walked up. Time to lead, ma'am. Mercer called platoon formation. Listen up. Some of you think I'm here because of my father's name. You're partially right. I am James Mercer's daughter. That opened doors, but I walk through them the same way you did by meeting the standard. I went to Ranger School. 62 days. Got recycled once in mountains. Came back and finished. I deployed to Afghanistan. Led soldiers under fire. Earned my tab and my combat patch the same way every ranger and paratrooper in this formation did by not quitting when it got hard. She paused. I don't expect you to respect my name. I expect you to respect my competence. If you can't do that, request a transfer. But if you stay, you follow orders and you perform, because at JRTC, we're being evaluated as a team, and I don't lose. She looked directly at Brennan. Staff Sergeant Brennan. You've been testing me for 2 weeks. I understand why you wanted to know if I was real. Now you know. So here's your choice. Get on board, or request transfer to another platoon. Decide now. 10 seconds of absolute silence. Then Brennan stepped forward and saluted. I'm on board, ma'am. And I apologize for being unprofessional. Won't happen again.
Good,
Mercer said. Then let's get ready to dominate at JRTC. JRTC. 2 weeks of absolute hell. Full force simulation against dedicated opposing forces. Observer controllers grading every single decision. Scenarios specifically designed to exploit weaknesses. Second platoon excelled. Day 3. Complex, urban assault. Objective clear. A 3-story building. Capture high-value target. Extract under contact. Mercer led the planning. Delegated execution to squad leaders. Moved with the assault element. They completed the mission in 19 minutes with 0 friendly casualties and successful HVT capture. Observer controller rated its superior performance. Day 6. Mounted patrol with IED strike simulation. Brennan's squad took simulated casualties. Mercer personally ran the casualty evacuation whilst organizing security and calling for medevac. Textbook tactical combat casualty care. Rated excellent. Day 9. Defensive operations. Platoon had to hold key terrain against a reinforced opposing force assault for 4 hours. Mercer positioned. Crew served weapons perfectly. Established interlocking fields of fire. Controlled indirect fire support with precision. They held the position for 6 hours until the scenario ended. Rated outstanding. Day 12. Final mission. Raid on a defended compound at night. High volley. Target capture. Sensitive site exploitation. Extract under contact. Mercer planned it personally. Briefed it clearly. Rehearsed it twice. And led the assault with night vision goggles. They completed the objective in 23 minutes, captured the HVT, collected intelligence, and extracted with 0 casualties. The observer controller called it the best platoon-level raid he'd evaluated in 3 years. When the final scores posted, 2nd Platoon ranked 1st in the company, 3rd in the battalion. Captain Ashford found Mercer during the final after-action review. "That was exceptional, Lieutenant. I'm putting you in for an Army Commendation Medal and recommending you for early promotion to Captain. You'll be taking over as my executive officer next month." "Thank you, sir." Ashford lowered his voice. "Your father would have been proud. I deployed with him in 2006. He was a hell of a leader." Mercer felt something crack in her chest. "I hope so, sir." Back at Fort Campbell, 3 weeks later, Battalion Awards formation. Mercer received her Army Commendation Medal in front of the entire unit. As she walked off the parade field, Brennan was waiting. "Ma'am, I need to say something." "Go ahead, Staff Sergeant." "I was wrong about you. I thought you were writing your father's name. I didn't see that you were honoring his legacy by being the kind of leader he was. You earned every bit of respect this platoon has for you, and I'm sorry I made you prove it the hard way." Mercer looked at him. "I don't need your apologies, Staff Sergeant. But I accept it, and for what it's worth, you're a good NCO. You just needed to remember that leaders don't have to look like you to be competent." "Roger that, Mamo. Also, I recommended you for promotion to Sergeant First Class and for the platoon sergeant slot when I moved to executive officer. Don't make me regret it." Brennan's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I won't let you down." "I know. That's why I recommended you." That evening, Jade sat in her quarters holding her father's photograph. 20 years of running from his shadow, but now she understood the shadow wasn't a burden. It was a foundation. He'd built something worth building on. She set the photo down next to her Ranger tab in her Bronze Star. Someday she'd add more, but for now, she'd earned something more valuable than medals. She'd earned the respect of soldiers who'd started as skeptics and ended as believers. Her phone buzzed. "Text from Brennan. First round's on me at the company bar." "You coming, ma'am?" Mercer smiled and typed back. "On my way." She grabbed her jacket and walked out into the spring night. There was work ahead. Always work ahead. But for the first time in 20 years, she felt like she'd stepped out of her father's shadow not by running from it, but by proving she belonged in it. And that was enough. Look, if this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to prove yourself twice as hard because of who you are or where you came from, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because there are more stories like this that need to be told. Stories about real people doing extraordinary things. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. Cheers.